Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm here tonight, again, Robert Fortunato, 1556 Prospect Avenue. I'm here tonight in response to Councilman Bobko's request for an update on what we're doing at the Green Idea House. And Michael was nice enough to mention last week that the last City Council meeting that we had our first milestone. Something that we're trying to do is really quantify what it is we're trying to do and try to put that out to people. And what we achieved was 97% diversion from the landfill of the demolition, deconstruction of our house project. And a lot of people were wondering, how do you actually do that? How do you get to those numbers? And so we wanted to present to you tonight just a quick brief on how we did that. So as you know, this was our existing 1959 structure. And you guys are familiar with what we're doing, and again, we so appreciate the support that you've given us. It makes what is impossible possible to do. But we're focusing on the embodied energy and the life cycle portion of the project. You can see there are number 10 to the project, but that's what we're doing tonight. And the question is, how do we divert 97.5% of the demolition waste from the landfill? And it's a very easy equation at a base level. It's the amount of reused or recycled material over the total amount of waste that we had. And it really started with thinking about what it is that could not be reused in the new project. And for example, many of you have done renovations, and we all know what happens to the plants, for example. It sounds like a simple thing, but they all get destroyed, right, in a renovation, and they end up going into the landfill. And so we ended up starting basically a 2-year project to say, can we transplant these? Can we give these away? And you see up there Patrick Moore and Jim Catella from the Manhattan Beach Botanical Garden, who took an enormous amount of the landscape and rocks, large rocks that they used in the Manhattan Beach Botanical Garden. So these are things that never ended up in the landfill, didn't even have to be counted actually into our diversion rate. And we did it over and over again. The community came in force to come and get these succulents that we had on our property. And you can see some of our neighbors up there, our next door neighbor, replanted their complete landscape with our plants. And you see it up there, Chris Miller and our friend Fred Koch came in, and they saw what we were doing, and they really made it happen. They got the city involved, and we actually got a large portion of our landscape transplanted to the green belt around 8th, I think it's 8th Street. And I also want to put in a memorial for Scott Powell, who has recently passed away, but he was influential in actually making that happen as well. And so that's sort of a tribute to him that will last forever. And just wanted to mark it out for Scott, because he really did contribute in a significant way. And last but not least, my son, during the Growing Great program up in Manhattan Beach, they offered us a table to sell these plants, and my son contributed the profits from the sale to the nonprofit organization. So it taught him something too about what you can give away and get back at the same time. We had a large number of stones on the property that actually can't be recycled. Concrete makes its way back into the waste stream in an interesting way. That is, most people think you can recycle concrete, but I'm sure you know, Mayor Tucker, it only gets downgraded into roadbed, right? And stones are even worse. If they're not concrete, they don't even make it into that. The machinery can't process random stones. And so we created a sort of creative way to reuse them. First step was during the holidays, we did something fun with them. And the second step was that we have a water reclamation system for our storm water, very similar to what you guys did near the pier, in that the first 1,200 gallons get stored, and the overflow from that will go into a retention pit that will percolate the soil back into the aquifer. Now, the retention pit that we dug was about 5 feet by 5 feet by 5 feet, and what needs to happen is you need to line that pit with stones. And so we had plenty of stones to line the pit, but we needed about a ton of pea gravel. So we had to say, where could we get a ton of pea gravel? And the fact is, we have a flat roof, that had about a ton of pea gravel that would have went directly into the landfill had we not swept it off, thrown it on our front driveway, and then dumped it into the hole. So that's a ton of material that was kept from the landfill, and it was free, essentially, to us. It would have cost us $400 to have trucked in, that material that would have had to be mined and transported and everything else that, that goes with it. So it's the creative use of the salvage area, and thinking of it like a salvage yard, essentially, is what we're trying to do. So we partner with the reuse people who looks at the whole site in that very same way. The reuse people basically works with demolition contractors and retrains them on how to be deconstruction contractors. So they took all our windows, all our toilets, everything that they could possibly use to resell, because reuse is the highest form of recycling, right? So everything that they could resell, because they're a nonprofit, could be used as a tax deduction to us to offset the additional cost of deconstruction versus just having a bulldozer come in and scrape the property and dump it into a dumpster. So really, the net of it is it took maybe 5 days longer for the deconstruction, but the cost is about the same when you consider the tax deduction. What we did with the lumber and other things on the site is to denail a lot of the lumber so we could use it in non-structural ways. We realized that we can't use it in structural ways because a lot of it you can't see the stamp on it. And our driveway as well as our back patio, we're saving the stones to reuse it in the landscape in terms of garden walls and other things. So it's this creative use of a salvage yard, essentially. Here's the current site where we're storing some of the salvage materials that are left over, and it's an interesting, story because most construction sites you see are just all the trash is sort of mixed into one giant pile, and we made a dedicated effort to separate out the rock, the sand, the wood material, and we posted it on Craigslist and a number of other media to say who needs sand, who needs rocks, who needs lumber. Right, scrap lumber, and the response has been extraordinary. This woman, the grandmotherly woman, Gracie, called me on the phone and she said, "I understand you have some dirt." She came with her contractor, the big pickup truck, and she looked at me with the biggest smile on her face. She says, "You're really giving away that dirt for free?" And I looked at her with the biggest smile on my face because I said, "You're really taking that dirt for free?" And it's a win-win situation. That's what we're trying to go for, is the win-win situation. Another gentleman who has a place out in the Mojave, a neighbor just walked by and he says, "What are you doing with that lumber?" I said, "Do you need some?" And he said, "Absolutely. I have a place in the Mojave." And he says, "Not only do I have a renovation project where that would be perfect for, but I was going to buy a cord of wood for firewood." So he got his pickup truck, he loaded it to the brim. Now he's got firewood and he's got stuff to build with out in his place in the Mojave. So, the message is, one man's trash is another man's treasure. The particularly interesting part is just by sorting the piles, the contractors want to throw everything in one pile. Just by sorting the piles, it made a huge difference. And the last part of it is the metals. The metals go faster than you can ever imagine. People are on that site almost every day saying, "Do you have," and they pick it off and it's gone in a second. The copper especially. So if you can create a market for those materials, and that's really, I think, the bigger objective. That's the thing I'm learning. If there's a way to create a market for these materials, they will go, to somebody who will find them of value. And we also have, just continuously use them. You see my wife and my son there, and I think there's, some sort of child labor law that I'm violating there. But he's having a blast learning how to reuse things at the same time. Right now, we've got the foundations in, the steel's in, the framing is going up currently. But we're really, really proud of the fact that we did hit that first milestone, and we look forward to reporting back on the rest of the milestones as the project continues, and hope you will all join us for further updates with the Green Idea House. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert. Steve, with our website, is it possible to put this on a link somewhere so people can, I think another great asset for our city to show that we are doing this, and I think we could put a link on there. And Robert, if you could maybe, as you give us these updates, get them to see, we can get them, because I know we have a new
Be happy to.
website coming up here soon, but I think it'd be to show people that there again with the water challenge and everything we do here, that this is what we're really doing here.
Yeah.
Come down, take a look, and get some free dirt.
Be happy to.
Okay.
Yes. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.